right, so welcome to Alpha webinar, Making the Leap from Corporate to Entrepreneur, the first year. I'm Mackenzie Laka, and I serve AKSI as the Associate Director of Education. I'll be moderating the webcast today. Before we dive into the content, just a few housekeeping details. We're going to ask all participants to keep themselves muted during the presentation so we can hear the speaker. But if you'd like to turn your video camera on, you may choose to do so if you'd like to. We do have the chat feature available so you can interact with other attendees and the presenter during the presentation. When posting, it's going to share your name, but consider also mentioning your chapter or your university as well. At the end of the presentation, we will have a brief Q&A, which you can submit your questions via the chat feature, or at that point, if you'd like to ask your question verbally, you can either use the raise hand feature and we'll unmute you, or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. So for our program today, we have Jennifer Hensley, and I will go ahead and just hand it over to her.
Thanks. Thanks for having me here today. It's great to be with you. I know we have a small audience in person, but this is going to be recorded, so hopefully it'll be helpful to other people as well. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into today's presentation about how I made the leap from the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur and where I'm at kind of within my first year and the learnings that I've had. So I was a member of AKSI. I graduated from Mizzou in Missouri in 1999, so it's kind of crazy that it's been that long ago. I studied marketing, got my degree in that, and thought I would do like sports entertainment marketing when I came out of college. I always loved to play sports. It's been something I still enjoy doing, and you could probably tell that by the name of my business, Playmaker Coaching and Consulting. But what I found was a lot of positions were really all around sales, and that was something that I didn't see myself really doing at all. I didn't feel like I was a salesperson. Well, 20 years later, look where I am. I have my own business, and a kind of sales is a big part of that. So sometimes I just kind of have to make those mental shifts, or what's the right time for certain things in our career journey. So I've realized that all the things that I was consulting with other people on for so long, now I have to do it myself, and it's a whole new appreciation of what it means to be a business owner. So let me tell you a little bit about my business, and then we'll dive into some of the things that I've learned that hopefully could help you, whether you see yourself becoming a business owner or maybe having a side hustle or interested to learn more what that might look like. So Playmaker Coaching and Consulting, as I said, I have always played sports. And what I found was in sports, my role, as for instance in soccer, I play center midfielder. So if you're familiar with that, I always felt my role is to distribute the ball, to look for unique ways to help other people score and advance and make the people around me, make my teammates look better. And that's what I really found like I did in business, because in some respects I felt like I had been a generalist in a lot of my work in my career over the years. But what I was really able to do was to help to connect different departments and different people and viewpoints, whether it was a client or internal business partners, and help them see things in a different way and think ahead of what our next steps in moving towards our vision might be. And that's what I really enjoy doing from a business perspective. So that's why I named my business Playmaker Coaching and Consulting. And what I do is I typically focus in on either people that are don't know what to do when it comes to marketing, are doing too much and kind of that shiny object syndrome and need to have a plan, or those that just really need somebody to be a pair of hands for them. And they're like, can you just help me advance my marketing efforts? So I help them put in place 90-day marketing plans to keep it right size for them, since they're usually pretty early in their career journey, maybe 5 years in. Early growth, referral-based businesses where most of the time they don't have very much of a team. It's them and maybe one or two other people. So to help them keep moving forward. So sometimes I'm helping them to be the playmaker, and sometimes I'm really being the playmaker for them. So that's just a little bit about kind of the work that I do to give you some context. But what I want to give you today is some components for your playbook. So I would say, I know we've got at least got somebody with us and everything, is, throw into the chat of like, why do you have a playbook? Why do businesses or sports teams, why do you have a playbook? What's the value of having a playbook? So if you want to throw that in there, and is it Collins, I think? I don't know if I can see those, but as you're thinking about that, some of the things that come to my mind is, to make things repeatable, to be able to scale it and have consistency among the team, right? To translate your vision into those specific steps that you can take to move towards it and really improve your performance. So I think that's some of the things that I would think about why to have a playbook. So we're going to dive into that, and then my decision to leap, launching a business, some of the learnings both from a business perspective and mental perspective, and what really keeps me going on moving forward in my business. So I told you that I love sports and pretty much any sport there is. So let me actually go back here. Tell you a little bit about though what happened between the days that I was studying, marketing at Mizzou and everything, and how did I actually become a business owner. So I worked for the same company most of the times after leaving college. Just had a couple different stints, so very different from what most people probably experience today, where you might work for a company for 2 or 3 years max. Had great experience, was moving up the corporate ladder, opportunity to do a lot of different things. Actually like my boss, which isn't necessarily that common, and I had a fair amount of flexibility and good benefits. So it was like, why? You're probably saying, why would you leave? And that was a lot of what I was facing with. It was like, hey, this is a pretty good gig. I'm doing pretty good. I'm the breadwinner. I'm, I like a lot of the people I'm working with. Why should I want something more? But there was always this part of me that felt like there was this calling of there's something more that I feel like I'm meant to do, and there's more potential in me, but I just was scared to make that leap. And I knew the reason that my family was in Wisconsin was because of my job. So it was like, if I'm not working for that company, why are we even here? Does that mean we're moving back to where all of our family is? And all those kinds of rabbit holes that we can mentally put, as blockers for us on making a decision to do something that we can ultimately maybe have even more impact with. So what I learned was it's okay to want more, and you can make it happen. Like, don't stop yourself. It's okay to go for it. It was okay to fail, which was always my biggest concern. So a big part of that what made me move forward was I have a now 9-year-old daughter. And I tell her these words that you see all the time. Every night we talk about, like, be curious, live boldly, dream big, all of these things. And that's what I really want to instill in her. And I felt like I was being chicken. I was playing it safe. That I wasn't modeling for her that it's okay to skin your knees, because I was like, I never want to get hurt. I want to do it right. So it really means a lot to me to try to be more of an example to her. And I just have examples of her, rock climbing, and she did her first 1 mile race last year. And those were really tough for her. And I know isn't something that she just goes out and does naturally. So it made me really proud to be able to see that she could get out of her comfort zone and try something new. And that's what I want to continue to do for her. So that keeps me motivated. So when our company went through some restructuring and my division was eliminated, it was definitely that extra push forward to say, this is the time to kind of redefine what do I want? Where do I want to go next? I was 20 years in my career, but gosh, I still have like another 20 years ahead of me. What do I want to make of that? And knowing that it doesn't have to be all planned out, but what's the next option? And there's probably multiple good options. So first and foremost, I said it was about my daughter, opportunity to show up different as a leader and make an impact in the way that I want with clients that know I can really help, and see what I'm capable of, and know that it's okay if I do fail. Like, let's just get started. So last Labor Day was when I really launched my business, brought on my first client in October, and it's been building from there. So a lot to learn yet. I don't have it all figured out, but hopefully a few of the things that I've learned in the last year will be helpful to you in your own journey. So what I hear from people usually is they're like, hey, Jen, where do I get started? Can I really make money and do what I love? And I help them understand that it's not about, the tyranny of the or, it's about the land of the and. And I don't know if you've ever heard that quote. It always sticks with me because I tend to want to be more in it can be this or this, that tyranny of the or versus changing it. And how can we shift our mindset and say, what if there was a way? And once I do that with my clients and for myself as well, it really opens the door for new possibilities of how we can approach a situation by just adding in that language of and versus being stuck in the or. So put away your devices. I know we're on video meetings and we're all on them all the time now. It's hard to do that, but put away your devices. Stay with me to the end. We're going to rock and roll through some things for you today. So I want to show you a way that you can really do what you want and create the life and the income that you want doing it. And, as a coach, I think the main thing they usually do, and having that playbook, is just make things a little bit easier, right? Easier for you. So that's what we're going for today. So let's start with some of the learnings on the business side. So those business equipment of how am I equipping myself to be successful as an entrepreneur. The first thing I think is around embracing your niche. So many people I talk to, are scared of, if I just go after this one particular market or this particular need that I see that's out there, that, hey, I'm going to alienate all these other people. I work with a law firm, and they often are like, oh, well, I want anybody could be our client. Well, when you go after anybody, nobody is going to be your client. So get specific. The more kind of extreme sometimes you can be in terms of going after that extreme user, it will appeal to more people, and you'll really resonate with a specific audience. So one way you can frame that is, who do you help? What is that niche to get what results, and by whatever your offer is. So for me, I really help those small business owners that are in referral-based businesses to implement 90-day marketing plans that are really manageable for them to help them increase their results and get to the next milestone in their business. So, and realize that when you start a business, it's going to change. Like whatever you think it is at the beginning of the first year, whenever you launch, by the end of the first year, it's probably going to look a little bit different. So just embrace that. Say yes when people ask you like, hey, can you do this? Could you help me with this? Just say yes. Somebody suggested to me, if you've ever done like improv, one of the first rules of improv is you say a yes and by adding in that and, just like we were talking about before, like that opens the door and then you can build on it. A couple things that I've found really helpful, especially right now, is having this low ticket, mid ticket, and high ticket offer. Two reasons. One, right now, low ticket is really helpful to most people because they want some flexibility. They're not sure how much they can pull the trigger on, but they see value in like moving forward. And if you can stay present in their business and keep moving, that they're going to come out ahead of most other people. But the other thing is when you have three offers, most people, where do they go? To the middle. They're going to land in the middle. So that gives you some options and where you want your sweet spot to be. And ultimately trying to develop those multiple streams of income. So even if you have a corporate job, if you have other things, so that if there is something that happens in the economy or something that happens with your family or whatever it is, you've got different things that you can tap into that give you a lot more options. Have business hours. So use a calendar scheduler. There's a lot of free different ones out there that save so much in terms of coordinating things with time with people. Have set hours and meeting times. So take control of your calendar. I usually have like 4 meeting times during the day, like a 1 o'clock, a 2 o'clock and stuff. And that's when I try to schedule everything towards. So find what works for you. That's one of the beauties of being your own boss, is you can take control of that. It's not perfect. Especially right now when I have my daughter at home and she's doing school and yelling at me that she needs help with things. But the more you can have kind of that structure, the easier it's going to make it for you to stay productive and to manage all of your different responsibilities that you have coming at you. Find working in weeks, not in days, is really helpful, because I've heard this somewhere about, this whole work-life balance. To me, there's never a balance. It's about integration. But a book I read talked about that on any given day, you get 3 areas of your life. So today it might be business, work, maybe some family time, and some, maybe it's some fitness time. But tomorrow I might not get those. Tomorrow I might have some friends time or some spirituality and some work time. But if you think about it in weeks, it makes it a little bit easier to realize that on this particular day, hey, it's going to be a heavy work day and I don't have really that time for family. But when I look at it in the course of a week, it feels a little bit more like, am I getting, that good mix that I want out of my life in the various different areas? So think about it a little bit broader, and then reevaluate quarterly. So when you try something new or a new process and everything, I encourage everybody to say, put it in place and then let it sit for a quarter, because otherwise, if you're re-looking at it every different day or week, you're going to waste a lot of time and resources on that. And it's going to be hard to really know what worked and didn't work. So give it a little time, let it sit, and then at the end of the quarter say, okay, now what do we want to change about our process, or what new things do I want to roll out? Tracking your activity. This is probably one of the most important things. And one of the things, thankfully, I had learned from all my years working with sales individuals was you need to know your numbers. And so many people don't, of like, how many people have I connected with, especially if you're more of a referral based business versus products. But even if it's products, from a marketing perspective, if you don't have any benchmarks of, how many people do we send an email campaign to before, and how many of them actually engaged or said they were interested in but didn't book at that time, hey, those people might be good to go back to now. I mean, if we don't have any data, it makes it really hard to know what success is. So data is the king. It's really important, everything, and setting yourself up for success of capturing that information. Expenses versus investments. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more, but really be conscious of where are you spending your money. In a referral-based business, one of the things I love about being in as a consultant is I don't have a lot of overhead. I can start really quickly. I don't have to spend a lot of money to get going, which gives me a lot more options than, if I was paying rent for somewhere right now, that would be a big difference, or all the fixed expenses that sometimes lock you in and don't give you a lot of options. So I'll talk about where do I feel like it makes sense to make an investment versus how am I managing some of my expenses. And then a couple things that might be helpful to you from more of the financial perspective. Compensation, you have a lot of different options in terms of how you might approach that. Generally, I'd heard information about looking at your, kind of what you're going for as your rate to be 3 times kind of what your total compensation is. Now, certainly you've got to marry that with what is the going rate in your market for the type of service or product that you're offering. But you can use that as kind of a starting point. And then whether you choose to do it hourly or project-based or retainer, it doesn't have to be just one. For me right now, most of my clients are either project-based or retainer. I like the retainer piece because I think it helps people shift to focus more on the outcomes and the value you're providing versus like, well, you're working for me for 5 hours and it costs me this much per hour and stuff. I think it just starts to shift it. But sometimes early in the relationship, they might be more inclined to work with you on a more limited engagement that feels a little bit easier to get in the door, and then they get familiar with what kind of results and how you work, and then want to shift to more of a retainer or something that ties you into maybe those results and bonuses based off of what's happening in the business. I say profit first. What do I mean by profit first? I mean, is that you want to build hopefully a business that's going to be around. So to do that, you want to set yourself up financially for that is sustainable by having a system. So let's say you have your monthly revenue that you're bringing into your business is 10,000, just an easy number. So you would start off by saying, okay, I'm going to put 5% back into the business. So that would be, $500. It's just going to go back into the business to keep building that. And then you're going to be, for taxes, somewhere between 20 to maybe a third of your revenue you need to save for taxes. Now, until you've started earning revenue and you have a profit in your business, you don't need to be concerned about this. But once you do, it's really important to start to set that money aside so you don't come back at the end of the year and have all this money that you're due. And then pay yourself. So 63% roughly is kind of some benchmarks around how much do you pay yourself. I really waited until as long as I could, kind of, and until I was definitely making a profit in my business before I started pulling any money out for myself. And then what's remaining are the things for those business expenses. So when we talk about expenses versus investments, it's kind of that roughly, that 12% bucket. That's like, okay, this is how much I have for it. I need to be really strategic on where am I spending those dollars. So where do I spend those dollars? How am I investing? I'm really investing in the right side, in people and expertise. So working with a coach, somebody who can help me spend time working on my business and the growth of my business and how do I get clients and keep them, and the accountability in that space. And then people that are technical experts. So as I said, I'm somewhat the generalist of helping them think about the plan and how do things work together. I am not your social media expert or your copywriter. I know what my strengths are and what things are not. And I will invest in other people that have that expertise so that I can deliver a really great product to my clients that makes them feel good. And I know if I'm delivering really good stuff to them, that will, continue to build, and they'll introduce me to more people. So that's where I invest. On the tool side of it, these are tools that either I'm using or I've heard from a lot of other consultants and business owners that they utilize. A lot of them have either very low cost or even free versions. So I've tried to leverage that as much as I can before I go into spending a lot of money in those spaces. But if you have questions about specific ones and like why I use one thing versus another, feel free to put it in the questions and everything. We'll try to address that as well. But there are a lot of things out there that you can tap into. So if I've lost you, come back to me. Hopefully you're getting a couple takeaways, but this is where it's hopefully getting really helpful as you think about, should you be a business owner? Does it make sense for you? So don't want to miss this. So let's talk about the mental side of it, because that's what I think is probably the most critical component of will you be successful or not with a business or a side hustle and everything. So the first part of it I think that's important is speed of execution. Executing beats perfect every single time. What you do today is what matters. Tomorrow is always tomorrow. So you want to think about what you're going to do today. And if somebody asks you if you can do something, like I said, just say yes. Move forward, make that decision, jump into it. You have to trust your gut. And that gets a little bit easier as you go, but that's where also having a coach really helps you with those things that are going to be your challenges sometimes. Find your people. People really want to help. You just have to reach out to them, ask them your questions, but be intentional on like, what are you hoping to get out of that relationship? And as much as possible, you want to build that relationship in advance of your need. So that you're not just going to people when you need something, but you're really developing that mutuality in that relationship. But find your coaches and your mentors. Make sure you stay connected with them on a regular basis, but people love to give back. And network, challenge yourself to at least on a quarterly basis, participate in some networking group. And I think right now that's actually making things easier because there are more and more that are doing them virtually so that you don't necessarily have to drive all over the place or to participate in groups. And there's a lot that you don't have to pay for, once again, that you can get involved, find out which one really feels right to you and that is the right support group that you need, and then continue to participate in those. Make sure that you're getting yourself out there, that you don't just, even if you are stuck at your house or something right now, secluding yourself and not having your people that you can go to bounce ideas off of. Know yourself. I think I'm fortunate that in my career, I've probably done every different assessment, it seems like, that's out there, from Myers-Briggs to StrengthsFinder to everything it seems like there is under the sun. But I think it's really important that I start with like my values and knowing that for me, it's about like faith, family, friends, fulfillment, fitness. I mean, those are all things that are really important to me. So if I understand what's most important to me, I can say, well, is what I'm doing, is it really in alignment with that? And then understanding my strengths. If you've heard of Gretchen Rubin, she's got a 4 tendencies quiz, and I'm a questioner. So I like to have things perfect and like, is it efficient? Does it make sense? Which is really good for my clients, but as a business owner can get in the way because I want to spend so much time like, should I use this software or this software? And once again, going back to speed of execution, I have to help myself move forward or equip myself with those coaches and things that help me manage those things that are my strengths and the areas that I can struggle with at times. The other thing I think with that is kind of, I know that it's around, imposter syndrome, and it's like, hey, I want to know it all. And like, am I good enough, that to know all the technical things that they're going to ask me, and being able to just move forward and manage that you really only need to be a few steps ahead of your client. You're much more relatable that way than if you're really that person that's so far down the line that you're like, I could never be them. So giving yourself some grace there. And then know the environment you will thrive in. So for me, it's about having that opportunity to make an impact, to think strategically, to be collaborative, a few of those things. And if you know the environment that you're most going to thrive in, then it allows you to focus more on the fit than it does to worry so much about title or the job description, like, oh, well, I want to have this specific, I want to be a VP or something, because it's more about how does it fit with where I know I can make the biggest impact in things that are important to me. So in addition, celebrate successes. That's extremely critical. You want to make sure you're celebrating those small wins. I mean, today I just got something from somebody and they're like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's move forward with it. And it's like those little things really mean a lot, and you got to hold on to them, especially if you're like me, where words of affirmation are really important to me. Milestones also along the way. When did I get my first client? Keep those kind of things visible. Hey, I turned a profit. I'm like, remind myself that I'm like, I'm not even really a full year in of like, hey, okay, I'm doing pretty good. Celebrate that and those pride experiences that you have. And then if you've ever heard about, your morning ritual or those daily success habits, I'm a big believer in that, of things of what am I doing to set myself up for success. So every day I start the day with like, what are my 3 bite-sized things that I can do? Initially, I would be like, I want to tackle this project needed done today. And it was so big, it was like, yeah, I'm never really getting that done. So what are the 3 specific things that I can do for that day? Having a daily gratitude practice, some journaling each day to reflect on things and what I'm doing and where I can improve. And a lot of it's also in this piece of, I have Be a Freaking Dime. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books. And one of the ones I've listened to was Jill Payne, and she talked about this, be a freaking dime. So a dime is a 10, right? It's a 10. We all want to be in our energy level. Can we be a 10? Now, I can't be a 10 most of the time. But I hope I'm not a 2. But how do I raise my energy, especially if it's something that I'm going into where I'm like, oh, I've got to have a difficult conversation with this client because I'm trying to help them, but they just aren't getting me anything, and I'm getting so frustrated and stuff. So like, how do I help them move forward? So if I can focus in on the B is my body, the F is where am I focusing? Is it more on a solution versus the problems? And the D is my inner dialogue. I'm so much more likely to be successful in that. So sometimes it's doing the, power pose before I have to make phone calls so that I can bring my energy up, listening to music, moving around, all of those kinds of things that are really going to help prepare you on the inside to be more successful on the outside with people that you're engaging with. I skipped ahead here. Let me go back. Okay. So, and if you're interested in any of those things like Gretchen Rubin or her 4 Tendency quiz or some of the other resources, I have links to those on my website. So I'll make sure that you guys have access to those as well. And you could check into those if they might be helpful to you. So what do I see for the future? Well, one of the things, like I said, I love about my business is that you can get started easily, not a lot of overhead, and you can do it from anywhere. But it is hard at times to drive results through other people, especially when they don't have a lot of support themselves, as well as when I don't have access sometimes to their systems, their technology. I can't just go in there and get the data I need or something. Sometimes I need them to provide that. So that can get frustrating. So a lot of what I'm focused in on right now when I think about the future is, how do I scale? How do I create more systems? How do I move from kind of walking and building a lot of things right now to things that I can repeatedly use as I go forward? And how do I move from kind of this minimum of like, hey, now I feel like I can do this, to my next threshold, which is like my next 6 clients? Where am I going to get them from? And how do I keep adding more value so that hopefully people keep introducing me to more good people? And then ultimately, multiple streams of income. What does that look like? How do I get there? So those are a lot of things I'm starting to ask myself now as I approach closer to that year. What keeps me going? Taking action. I always feel better. I don't want to get on the phone. I don't want to make the phone calls, but as soon as I do, I always feel so much better. And it gets so much easier once you get started to keep the momentum going. It's just getting started a lot of times. Client feedback, like I said, is super helpful. And then, coaches, we're our own worst coach. Having somebody else that helps us move forward, I think, is extremely valuable. So I have a word each year. If you ever heard John Gordon, other people talk about it, your word of the year. My word for this year is rise. And if you're familiar with the lyrics, most people probably have heard these from Hamilton. I listen to this every morning as part of my daily routine of like getting myself focused on like, hey, this is my opportunity. This is my shot. So how can I rise up? I've been given this gift. How can I show curiosity and boldness and vulnerability for my daughter? What talents I've been given, making sure that I am really utilizing those. Elevate others, make my teammates around me look better with what they're trying to do. That's what it's all about for me. So that's why every morning I try to ground myself in that and set myself in my mind best to equip my goals and have the impact that I want to have as a business owner. So with that, I don't know if there's some questions. I can try to answer any questions if we have any time for that. And then I just have ways that you can connect with me if you want to talk further.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Jenna, for the presentation, everything you've shared already. So I do have a question here. So you said that you mentioned that you work with clients that are product-based. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit further?
Most of my clients are in referral-based businesses, so financial services, small law firms, accountants, consultants. So they usually don't have a tangible good. They're selling more of the service that they provide. So number one, it's still a referral-based. Like I can, however I can help them from a marketing perspective. I feel like it's helping to make it easier that when people get introduced to them, that they're more likely to have a conversation with them and consider them, or more likely to stay with them and advocate that other people work with them. But they're, at the end of the day, they're still going to have to get those introductions. It's still a referral-based business.
All right, so expanding on that a little further, how would you approach being an entrepreneur for like a referral base versus a more tangible product base?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different because sometimes we're talking more about your referral process. So when do you ask for introductions? How do you ask for introductions? Influencers, which can be helpful to all businesses, but particularly if you're in more of a referral-based business, do you have those key relationships with people? Are some of the things that we'll focus in on. So it's less about, like advertising and even speaking engagements. Often it's more individual sometimes with referral-based businesses. I think we also talk a lot about the client experience, which is important to every business, but how you're delivering that intimate experience to your clients, I think in referral-based businesses is even more important because they don't have that product there to be like, oh yeah, I love this. And I love, that I get this from Amazon or whatever it might be or something. You don't have that to hold on to. So if you're talking about like life insurance, most of us like don't even think about it until like, God forbid something happens to us. So it's even harder and important that they're making sure that they're staying top of mind and staying connected and adding value in ways besides the actual product that they might have to provide or that service that they're providing to their clients.
All right. So a lot of times people that are interested in becoming an entrepreneur are hesitant on, is it the right time? Whether they have a full-time job right now and they're not ready to quit, or they're still a student, don't think they have enough experience, or they don't have money. Are there any specifics that if you don't have them, you probably shouldn't get started yet? Or what's your thoughts on the timing of becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I will say there's probably never like the ideal time. Like you're never going to feel like, oh, this is the perfect time. Like you're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off and just go at some point and just move forward and see where it takes you. Are there some things that can make it a little bit easier? Certainly. If you can build up some financial, savings so you have a little bit more cushion there before you go into it. I mean, that can definitely help to you to weather it because you're not going to instantaneously probably start at the same income maybe you were at if you were in a corporate position before. I know I haven't. It's going to take me some time to still get back to that. Being able to, network and talk to other business owners. I mean, I spent from the time I left my corporate job last May to really kicking off and launching Labor Day, I spent those few months talking to a lot of people saying, how did you charge people? Who do you serve? What systems are you using? Like just doing a lot of fact finding with other people that really helped me to get off to a good start of, okay, I knew I wanted to, only charge people and use credit cards because I was like, I don't want to be hunting people down to say like, you still haven't paid me, I'm like, so those relationships and everything will definitely help you get off to a faster start as well. So I think surrounding yourself with good people and just learning as much as you can ahead of time will make it a little bit easier. And if you've had any exposure to, other things along the lines, like I had worked with a lot of business owners, so I knew a lot of my niche, my client, I understood them and their pain points, so I could be really relevant to them. I think that helped me get started. And because I had worked in the industry, I had some immediate credibility with them that made it a little easier too. So those would be some things that I think would make it a little easier. But is there ever going to be the right time? No, at some point you just have to say like, okay, I'm going to get started. And maybe it's not 100%. Maybe you can still do both, like I said, for a while. And it's kind of your side hustle until you're ready to pull that string.
All right, so as you are coming up on your end of your first year, are there any mistakes that you made that you're able to talk about to help other people maybe avoid them?
Oh, I probably have made a ton. Thankfully, hopefully nothing too terrible. Still figuring it out. I think one of the things that I'm learning, I was even talking with my coach about it today, was setting expectations. Like I said, their success and my success were dependent upon each other and moving things forward. And it can be really challenging. Like I have a couple clients right now where I know they want to do stuff, but like I've sent them a lot of emails and I haven't heard back. And like we're just kind of sitting on stuff. And it's like, okay, are they still with me or not? And having better conversations early on about what the expectations are I have for them and what expectations they have for me, I think would help make it less likely. We still might have those conversations, that it still probably could come up, but we would have already addressed it maybe more clearly at the beginning. So when it comes back up later on in the relationship, you can be like, yeah, remember when we talked about this? This is what we agreed to. And this is what, we're trying to do because you said this was important to you and everything. So I think that's one of the things that I could do a better job of. And certainly just, sometimes when you have to have like a conversation that feels a little bit challenging, and I still want to just send emails sometimes. I don't want to pick up the phone and have the call, but you got to pick up the phone and have the conversation. So doing more of that is something that I think I'm trying to get more comfortable with. I'm trying to also do more Facebook Lives and stuff and put myself out there and say, well, I don't know exactly if I have all the answers, but hey, at least sharing, here's what I've learned, here's what I see other people doing, and trying to add value.
All right, so not seeing any other questions. Jennifer, do you have any final piece of advice that you want to share about entrepreneurship and what you've learned?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time once again. Hopefully this is helpful. And I just want to, let everybody know that if you found this valuable and you'd like to connect with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I've got my link here too, so that feel free to reach out and schedule, a half-hour call with me. And I'll tell you straight up, like, here's how much I'm making, here's how many clients I have, the good, the bad, anything you want to ask me, I will be an open book with you. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out. And as I said too, on my website, I have those links to like Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendency quiz, the Jill Payne podcast on being a dime. So you can check those out and see if those are helpful to you as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jennifer. I want to thank you again for your time and everything that you've shared with us today. And thank our participants for joining in and their questions. So last reminder, make sure you all log into the My AKSI community, where you can engage with other members in the collaboration groups and register for more upcoming events like this session. Thank you all again for attending, and we'll see you in the My AKSI community.
Thanks so much.